I have come that they may have life and have it to the full. These words from John's Gospel are at the heart of what church and community mobilization is trying to do. So what does it mean to have life to the full? It can be summarized as 4 things. It's emotional well-being and being at peace with ourselves. It's physical well-being, which includes being healthy and having a sustainable livelihood. It's about social well-being, living in peace and harmony with our communities. And it's about spiritual well-being, having a relationship with God, knowing that we are loved and valued as we are. But for many individuals, families and communities, this is not their reality, and they are trapped in a cycle of poverty and isolation. The causes of this are many and complex, but perhaps one of the key things that traps people is the negative mindset. The Kenyan facilitator, Francis Njoroge, coined the phrase, "Poverty is in the head and not the pocket." In particular, it's the mindsets of fatalism and dependency that often lead to a state of inertia. Fatalism is a mindset that says, what will be, there's nothing I can do to change things. We see this all over the world, in rich as well as poor countries. People young and old who believe life is hopeless and will never get any better, and sometimes choose escapism in the form of negative behaviours and addictions. Dependency is the belief that the only way out of poverty is through outside aid, and so communities become dependent on foreign aid or rely on benefit systems. Even our churches can have these negative mindsets. We're just a small church. What can we do in the face of the need around us? The church and community mobilization process, otherwise known as CCMP, has been challenging and changing these mindsets for over 30 years. One of the underlying principles of CCM is that we are all created in the image of God and are invited to participate in what God is doing in the world, using our God-given gifts and resources for the good of others. We all have something to bring, and we all need each other's help. Through this process, the church is a catalyst for change in the community. The church members are envisioned through creative, in-depth Bible studies, which help them to see familiar passages in a new way and understand the biblical mandate for the church to be salt and light in its community, particularly with regard to the poor, the vulnerable, and the marginalised. Once envisioned, the church members strengthen relationships with their community, and then with the help of simple participatory tools, together with the community, they gather information, analyse that information, and then plan projects or initiatives for the common good, using their own resources. Agencies including Tear Fund, the Mothers Union, Compassion International, and World Vision have commissioned resources documenting this process. And these resources are now being used in over 40 countries and translated into around 20 languages. As a result, fatalistic and dependent mindsets are being changed. Relationships are forming across cultures and across faiths, and communities are becoming self-sufficient. Instead of being regarded as irrelevant buildings, envisioned churches are now the heartbeat of their communities and are growing as a result. One of the key factors changing mindsets in church members has been the power of creative, in-depth Bible study. And so why have the Bible studies been so transformational? Firstly, many people in churches are just used to listening to the preacher and hearing his or her interpretation of a Bible passage. When church members go through the CCM process, for many this is the first time they've studied the Bible for themselves and allowed the scriptures to speak to them personally and discuss their insights with others, and this can help to change mindsets. And then there is the power of creativity. The Bible is full of amazing stories of transformation, particularly the stories of those who encountered Jesus. But these passages are largely written as a sequence of events. The emotions of the people whose lives have been transformed are rarely visited in Scripture, so we have found that the use of drama and art to bring these passages alive has been key in helping people empathise and identify with the characters and see familiar passages in a different way. Through entering into the Bible stories in this profoundly personal way, the words on the page go from the head to the heart. New insights are shared as groups reflect on the drama and the art, discuss questions on the Bible passage, and apply the learning to their own contexts. The chosen passages show clearly the church's role in the community, in particular with regard to the poor and the marginalised. The themes of vision, compassion, prejudice and faith are studied in depth, and most importantly, what it means to love God with all our heart and our neighbour as ourselves. Mindsets in the community have changed through an envisioned church, building and strengthening relationships with their community based on love and acceptance, and through this giving people hope and a desire to reach their potential as individuals and as a community. This involves the church and community working together to identify their resources and needs, plan projects or initiatives to improve the livelihoods and the well-being of the whole community. This is achieved through using a range of simple tools which empower everyone to plan together and make key decisions for the future of their community. Integral to all of this is the quality and character of the facilitator, who walks with the church and community in helping them achieve their mutual vision. All over the world, we are seeing this process become a way of life for transformed churches and communities who are working together to find solutions to their issues, bringing Isaiah's vision of a world living in communal harmony just a little closer. So let's look at a couple of examples of the impact that CCM has had in the world. The Nusu community live on the island of Lembeh in Indonesia. Previously, there were various problems including unemployment and drunkenness. Also, the children were often unable to get to the only school on the far side of the island due to the fact that there were no roads and they had to go along the shoreline and the tides often cut them off. The church went through the CCM process and built relationships with the rest of the community. Together they decided to build their own school. They only used local resources, and when they lacked funds to put a roof on the building, families donated pieces of corrugated metal from their own roofs and patchworked them together. There was little stable employment on the island, but an abundance of coconuts. The community had tried to sell to local oil factories, but they paid very little. With their newfound confidence of working together for the common good, they considered making coconut oil, which they knew would bring in a lot more money. As it turned out, no high-tech equipment was needed, and they quickly taught themselves the process. And so they produced basic cooking oil and the more valuable virgin coconut oil, which fetched a very good price for its health and cosmetic benefits. Many of the men who are night fishermen and previously didn't work during the day, preferring to drink, are now involved with the coconut oil production, including the harvesting of the coconuts. As one of them said, "It's best to be sober when you're climbing trees." There's a buzz about this community now. Church and community are working together, men and women are usefully employed, and children are happy and being educated. All are prospering as a result of the new school and increased income brought in by the coconut oil. In the last 8 years, the CCM process has been introduced to Nepal. Nepal is primarily a Hindu and Buddhist country, with Christianity very much a minority religion at present, although it is growing all the time. One group of 12 churches in the remote dialect region in the Midwest of the country was envisioned by the CCM process and started to build relationships with the community and local authorities by cleaning streets and building public toilets, which was thought of as a very demeaning task. Also, as a response to the Good Samaritan Bible study, Love Your Neighbour as Yourself, they decided to give their firstborn goats to the needy Hindu and Buddhist families around. Because of these gestures of humility and generosity, trust was built, and the 12 churches gained approval and support from the local communities, and this led to the setting up of self-help groups, which are composed of Hindus, Buddhists and Christians. The youth in the church and community also found a way of using their youth and strength as a resource for the common good. Dailek is very mountainous, and the health clinic is at the foot of the mountains, and it can be difficult to get to by the old and the sick. So the young people constructed stretchers, and through a mobile phone coordinated system, they would run up the mountains with the stretchers and carry the old and sick down to the health centre. They became a youth ambulance service. All 12 churches have seen a growth in attendance and commitment, and have been recognised as catalysts in the community for improving literacy, healthcare, income generation and food security. Like these 2 case studies, churches all over the world are strengthening their relationships with their communities and beginning to reconcile differences and transform livelihoods. It's not a sophisticated process. It's about releasing potential and people using what God has given them for the common good to give our churches and communities a hope and a future.